bilateral and also regional stuff. So we're also hoping that ASEAN can become a major hub. ASEAN is youthful, progressive, and one of the fastest growing region in the world. So it's slowly becoming the new hope of the global collapsing system. But in another way, we can see that ASEAN is not reaching its potentialities yet, because since the first establishment from 1967, we are seeing that the intra-regional trade share in ASEAN is just less than 25%. So if you're comparing ASEAN with other regions, for example, EU has more than 70%. So in that sense, ASEAN is progressing, but ASEAN alone, I think, is going nowhere. So in that sense, it's actually very crucial to go beyond ASEAN. We are also talking about the bilateral cooperation between Indonesia and Malaysia. We have now, all in all, the total trade 25 billion of US dollar. But if you, for example, if you compare it with China, Indonesia, US, this is
eclipse everything. That is the number.
It's actually just left behind. So in a way that to go beyond ASEAN is actually really the answer. How ASEAN can become the point of consolidation. We are in a world is very fragmented, just like today. We are actually offering neutrality, the ASEAN way, meaning that we are friends to everyone. We are friends with China, to the US, to the Russia, the rest of the emerging markets, and we can actually serve as the global and regional hub.
All right. Now, as we said before, Mas Fitra, this state official visit today is a follow-up of many numerous meetings between the two leaders, and President Prabowo and Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim actually met in Malaysia in January, in which in that meeting they agreed to strengthen strategic cooperation in various sectors: economy, defense, education, and even energy. Now, do you think that the two countries, Indonesia and Malaysia, should set up a new partnership initiative in addition of the ones already existing, to strengthen the ties, especially economic ones?
Sure, because Indonesia and Malaysia, in a way, we have so many proximities to each other. So in terms of, for example, CPO, we are covering 80% of the total world production. So
we are both largest producers.
Yes, of course. So in that sense, we can actually naturally we are actually having such a close bond. And in terms of, we have the terminology in international economics, gravity equation, coming from the Newtonian gravity equation. The closest to you is actually the most important. So we have the gravity, the GDP. We have also the geographical proximity. We have the similarities in language, and then culture. So as a matter of fact, we have so many people back in the day was coming from Indonesia to Malaysia, and then we have so many descendants of Indonesian people there in Malaysia. So in a way, that's actually becoming a major foundation of this future and current bilateral cooperation. So in that sense, we understand each other, but sometimes we understand, but we also hate each other sometimes. Sometimes in the grassroots,
all brothers and sisters and families have their disputes,
love and hate.
But there's only love in there.
It has been up and down, to say the least.
Ups and downs.
All families have that.
Yeah, sure. But in a way that is actually the indicator that we are actually very close. We know each other. We know each other conditions, and we are competing to each other. But in the other sense, we are actually cooperating to each other. So in this, U.S., China, Russia, and also Iran versus Israel, we are actually offering the world the new hope. We are the major. We are the region that is actually very neutral. We are offering so many things. You can invest here because it's actually less risky. So in a way that if we have this World War III, coming from between Iran, Israel, and we have the nuclear catastrophe. In ASEAN region is actually
it's been said that we are the safest. Indonesia,
one of the safest regions in the world.
So we are very blessed geographically speaking.
and these two leaders will hash out essentially. Now I'd like to go first to you, Mas Fitra, because there's a lot of issues if we can just nitpick into each and every one of them. You mentioned we share some true sense of semblance of similarities between Indonesia and Malaysia, in particular having the DNA of, we have the Indonesian people and the Bumi Putra people of Malaysia, and they also have their Chinese and Indian descent. And on that sense alone, does this open up a plethora of opportunities for us to sort of tighten our cooperations and friendships, in particular under the chairmanship of ASEAN this year? There's so much to do within this entity.
So of course, I remember just a couple of years ago, back then in 2011, when Surin Pitsuwan, the ASEAN former General Secretary, once he was actually aiming for a more closer relationship among ASEAN member countries, aiming for a 30% minimum of intra-regional trade share. Yeah. But up until today, we haven't seen this figure yet, because we are still actually, very fragmented. We are actually very...
So 30% is the goal, or
30% is the goal in 2015.
Oh, that was quite a while ago.
Quite a while ago, because we had before an ASEAN Economic Community. So in a way that these two leaders are now discussing the potentialities of having a more closer relationship in terms of economic ties. Yeah. And then we have also, a typical way to actually negotiate with Trump tariff, which is actually our primary concern nowadays, because next July will be actually the end of the tariff halt.
Yeah. So the 90-day pause, as Trump would put it. So we are on shaky ground at the moment.
Sure. So in a way that we need actually to respond it both bilaterally and also as ASEAN member countries. And also we have seen what happened geopolitically happening in the Iran versus Israel, that is actually disrupting the world's energy. And then the Hormuz Strait was actually very crucial, and it's actually a very important issue. Energy issue is actually another thing to be considered.
Right.
Okay, before we
continue on, since we're waiting for them to greet the press for the first time.
We heard that the Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim saying that Prabowo is his inspiration as a leader.
I see.
Also, Prabowo also saying the same. The Prime Minister of Anwar is also one of the inspirational leader. So in a way that they're actually very close and they inspired each other. And then of course we saw before President Prabowo riding Maung.
Yes.
So I remember several months ago. As a matter of fact, and the inauguration of our president in last year, my friend, the journalist of one of the Malaysian national TV, asked me about how to buy the car. So it's actually very beautiful.
Such an interest towards Maung.
If it's available for the public.
Yes, of course. And Prabowo saying that I can buy foreign cars if I want, but I need to promote our own local product.
Right.
So in a way that this can become our economic potentialities in terms of economic cooperation, bilateral economic cooperation.
Let's have our own Proton.
Exactly. And then you need to remember that we also have Professor Brian Yuliarto there.
The Minister of Higher Education,
and Science. But Prabowo is also focusing more on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. So that can become our actually collaborative sector between Malaysia and
an avenue to explore there.
An avenue to be explored in terms of industrial collaboration, in terms of having regional sovereignty. So we can bring ASEAN, we can invite more investment, but of course we need to actually enlarge our domestic capacity in order to attract investment. Not that we are coming to other countries and hey, I need your money, no. But they're actually coming because they need us, because our industrial potentialities. So in a way that we can have this kind of collaboration that's actually very progressive. And yeah, of course, not only bilaterally, we can also talk about regional matters, as Prof. Susi mentioned earlier, on borders, on Myanmar, and so on and so forth. Because ASEAN has so many problems. We have also our own modalities as ASEAN way, but we need to define what is actually ASEAN way. Sometimes it's becoming our constraint. Yeah, the ASEAN way, the leniency. We have so many, meetings. We have so many high-level meetings, but we need realization. So in a way that these two leaders, I think they're actually the one that can walk the talk.
Right. So the ASEAN way is not just the way.
The biggest producers, both of us.
The biggest, all of us. We've had our own ordeals in terms of dealing with the European unions, and we've made progress there. Walk us through some of the key moments of this progress.
So I remember just 2 years ago when I was speaking in Astro Awani TV Malaysia. So they asked me the same thing about how we can actually cooperate the CPO negotiation against the WTO.
Yeah.
And then we're quite progressive, since 2 years ago, and then we won the negotiations, right? So because sometimes it's actually quite important that we need to actually show our strength, and then we need to cooperate, because all in all, two of us, this Indonesian-Malaysia relationship, 80% of the total CPO production in the world.
Worldwide.
So, and CPO, we have so many products coming from CPO, and not only cooking oil, but we have soap, we have footwear, and so on and so forth. So many products, so many products, and also the US needs the Indonesia and Malaysia CPO also, because they're finding that if they're buying it from the EU, it's actually quite expensive. So, and they cannot produce it by themselves, so they also need this CPO also coming from Indonesia and Malaysia. So that's also our modalities, as a way that we are showing our strength. We are actually the largest producers, so you need to actually go with our way, right? So and then we can prove that CPO is actually quite it's not environmentally destructive. So as long as we can actually prove that CPO is environmental friendly, so it's okay. So and that is actually really the case.
Okay, we were in a lot of pressure from the EU and WTO a few years back. So is now the pressure is off, or is it easing? How's the situation
I think
right
with
now,
Trump actually, dismantling all of the green stuffs is actually in a way that it's actually also benefit us, because now they are actually looking to the Trump tariff, not for the green issues, right? So and then now we have also the EU SEPA, Indonesia EU SEPA ongoing, right? So it's almost 10 years, and now we are quite progressive. Actually, this month or next month, we can sign the EU SEPA, Indonesia EU SEPA relation, and then this is actually quite ideal, because most of the time EU is actually the one that go against us in terms of the CPO negotiations. So in a way that we can actually collaborate eventually.
Okay.
Well, what does it entail when it comes to these agreements? I mean, we're talking about comprehensive economic partnership between Indonesia and European unions, and also in this particular context is us working together with Malaysia as the largest crude palm oil producers.
Right. So I remember in 2011 when I was working in Tokyo in Asian Development Bank Institute, I wrote an article about how the future is ASEAN. EU is struggling, so EU needs ASEAN in order to progress more. So in a way that we are now, it's not the subordination of the Western counterparts. We are now at a more equal partnership with the EU, with the Western countries, and so on and so forth. They need us. Of course, we need them, but they need us more, because they are actually quite struggling economically, and that they need to actually to invest to avoid the steady state condition in their respected countries. So they need to invest more in order to progress. So that also benefit us. And I also spotted Pak Rosan Danantara also in this event. So I'm seeing that Danantara also going to have a very crucial role in this bilateral negotiations. And then of course with Danantara, of course, we have so many critics with to Danantara, but we have so many hopes also for Danantara, because it's 50-50 chance. If we don't do anything, so we are just like 5% growth. But if we are actually betting for another variables, maybe we can actually progress. So Danantara may be the one to be bet.
Yeah. Although for a lot of countries out there, a 5% growth is a dream. But for
What exceptional.
for countries that are 2 to
Yeah.
3%, 5 is a dream. But for us, it's 8.
Yeah.
8%. So industrialization
Right.
is the key.
Yeah.
So industrialization meaning that you're expanding your productive capacity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nowadays, our contribution, the manufacturing
18%.
sector to the GDP is about 18%. So we are aiming to have more. So with this industrialization, how can we have this industrialization? With investment. I was telling you about the investment needs, 10,000 trillion of rupees, but that's not the end. Investment, yes, we can actually industrialize, but we need also the people. We need the absorptive capacity. If the investment is coming, but our people is not
Yeah,
working,
yeah, we have no
so what
workforce
for?
to support it.
So what for?
That would
so we
be
need actually to
useless.
also to enhance our human capital. So that is why, according to Astachita, we also invest more and more to the people. So we are actually becoming, we are aiming not only growth, but inclusive growth.
Yeah, larger numbers, but whether or not it comes along or in the same sense of having a qualified one, that's a matter of another thing to resolve.
Yeah. That's true.
Bu Susi, high-ranking officials are embroiled in. Mas, how optimistic are we to have this sort of sovereignty wealth be a success for our nations? Maybe it's going to be in a long run, but we need to learn all of these successful lessons from our neighbors.
So we need the people to control it. So we need transparency so that the people can see. So as an analogy, I'm driving my car, I have a line assist, right? A line assist. So
Is it a driverless car or still with a car
Yeah,
with a
so-
driver? Oh, you're driving.
I'm driving my
You're
car.
driving.
I'm
You're
driving
driving
my
this
car.
car.
I'm way into the future there. Continue.
Yeah, and then whenever I cross the line, the alarm actually tilting. So democracy, the people, is actually the line assist. The government has the roadmap, but whenever a government cross the line, the people will actually, voice their concerns.
Okay.
Oh, blow the whistles right away.
Blow the
Yeah.
whistle.
Yeah, you're
So
off
of course,
track there.
So
Okay,
we need
yeah.
democracy in order to control the government. So again, in terms of the six-dimensional institutional factors that I mentioned earlier, so we need also the voice and accountability, also to control the government. Of course, in authoritarian regime, it can be very easy, but it can be also very corrupt. We don't have the people to control it. But with democracy, now the people can see. The wealth of the public authorities now is actually in public. Everyone can actually see. Oh, you have so many cars. But
Everything's transparent.
Transparent. But you have your wage here. Your cars is using Rolls Royce, so it's not matching. So it must be a problem. So everything. If everything is transparent, people can control, and democracy is the way, the line assist that can actually lead the roadmap into our ultimate goal.
Well, here in our country, when it comes to high-ranking officials, sometimes it's not, oh, you have a lot of cars, but it's your son has a lot of cars. It's the sons that brings it up to the public's attention.
Very interesting analogy.
That-
So before we continue our discussion, and
Yes.
while we issues that the two leaders need to discuss about and reach an agreement.
Yeah. So if you remember the second Astachita, security issues is actually pretty much within a chapter with economy, energy, and food. So as long as we can actually have a productive capacity in order to enable people to have food, to have energy sufficiency, so we have security. Because the problem with security terrorism, why people are becoming a terrorist? Because they are suffering. So they are confronting with the government.
A dissatisfaction. A deep one at that.
Dissatisfaction. So in that way, in order to actually satisfy the security issues, according to second Astracita, you need to be food sufficient. You need to be, in terms of energy, you have energy sufficiency. You have to be employed. And then with that, we have security. So that's actually
the fulfillment of all the elements of security. And on that front, Mas, I'd like to bring up our attention and our discussion to one of the, if not the longest standing issue that we've been having with Malaysia, which is the fact that a lot of our Indonesian workers, migrant workers, are having troubles in Malaysia. And up to this point, there's been a lot of details to be ironed. Meetings have been held between high-ranking leaders. I had the opportunity to interview our ambassador of Indonesia to Malaysia in Kuala Lumpur, where he walked me through one of, if not the busiest Indonesian embassy in the world in Kuala Lumpur, where on a daily basis he informed us over 2,000 Indonesian workers are there to report problems in regards to their citizenships, their extensions of working permits, passports being detained, being held by their employers. And just the most recent case, an alumni of Malaysian Master Chef who just tortured our household assistant to death. And the case has been resolved and now been charged by the Malaysian court for 34 years. And that alone is like tip of the iceberg. We've heard cases that they just leave near to death, if not already dead, Indonesian workers at the front gate of our Indonesian embassy. And just to illustrate some of the most grave things that we are facing up to this current time with Malaysia, do you think that this will be something they need to deep dive on and find the resolution to?
Of course. So this also becoming a major concern to the president. And also, if you're seeing the cabinet members nowadays, we have also a minister that is actually tackling that kind of specific issues. But of course, this is the issue in the downstream. So we need to also come back to the upstream. What is actually the source of the problem? Because of the capacity. So we are actually, of course, we have the workers. We have so many people working abroad because we don't have enough space here. The
millions in Malaysia alone.
So we need to actually to create economic opportunities also here. And then the government is trying also to create this kind of employment. That's actually one thing. Another thing, we need also to invest more on education. How the workers can be compatible, can be one source of productive and absorptive capacity, investment coming, but we are also the people can also actually be compatible with the
capability and capacity to do the work.
Exactly. So Amartya Sen once said, commodities and capabilities. So of course we have the commodities, but if we don't have the capacity to use it, so it will be in vain. So the government is also trying to enhance that, and also to trying to send the high-skilled workers abroad. So that if you're seeing the current account, in net transfers payment, we have the deficit. Why? Because the foreigners that is working here, high-skilled workers, they're sending the money abroad, so our loss.
We are sending out
blue-collar workers. Of course, they are also sending money, but it's actually we have the deficit.
Not achieved there.
The balance is not achieved. Of course, we are actually quite fortunate that we have the people that can also work abroad. But in the future, we can also send our high-skilled workers also to actually to balance the budget, not only to balance the budget, but also to have a surplus in net transfers payment. But along the way, we also trying to tackle the issues with the specific ministries handling this kind of issues, especially, of course, we have most of the issues coming from Malaysia. So that's also becoming the major concerns, and the president also have the discussion with the Prime Minister. Of course, this is becoming the priority of the president to be tackled.
All right. How about you, Prof. Susi, with Malaysia
regionalized than before.
Right. And the 132 point something billion US dollars as the capital, the venture capital on behalf of ASEAN can be a great kickstart to reach that the points that you mentioned there.
But maybe in the future we can actually also merge Kasana and Danantara. Why not?
Wow.
Why not?
Yeah.
And also Temasek, also in a way.
And call our countries Malindo or Injamau.
Go in synergy, right?
High
Because in
synergy.
economy, we call it the economies of scale.
Yeah.
If we can actually level up, so it's actually better for ASEAN countries also.
Okay. How about you, Prof. Susi? What is your